The phone buzzed, a mundane vibration against the worn fabric of my jeans, but the message it delivered was anything but. My mother's name flashed on the screen, followed by words that sliced through me like shards of ice. Don't come to Thanksgiving. The world around me, bustling with the last-minute frenzy of holiday preparations, seemed to freeze. My breath hitched, a sharp, painful gasp. It was precisely 1 p.m., just mere hours before the rich, comforting aroma of roasted turkey, savory sage stuffing, and sweet, spiced pumpkin pie would begin to fill the familiar, cherished rooms of our family home. A home, I might add, that I had never, not once in my entire 22 years of life, missed a single Thanksgiving dinner in. My hands, usually so steady and capable, now trembled uncontrollably as I reread the curt, brutal text, my eyes frantically scanning each letter, each punctuation mark, searching desperately for a hidden meaning, a subtle hint of irony, a playful joke, anything, absolutely anything, to soften the devastating, unexpected blow. But there was nothing. Just those 5 stark, unyielding words, utterly devoid of explanation, completely lacking in warmth, delivered with a chilling, absolute finality that left me feeling utterly disoriented, my sense of reality fractured. My mind reeled, a chaotic whirlwind of fragmented memories, flashing back to every single Thanksgiving celebration before this one. I could almost taste the crisp, buttery skin of the turkey, hear the joyful clatter of silverware against my grandmother's antique porcelain plates, feel the comforting weight of a full belly. I remembered the boisterous, unrestrained laughter echoing through the grand dining room, a sound that had always been synonymous with warmth and belonging. I vividly recalled being a small, proud 5-year-old, my chubby fingers sticky with glue, presenting a lopsided construction paper turkey to my dad, who, with a twinkle in his eye, had pretended it was the most magnificent, majestic bird he had ever laid eyes upon. I remembered being a mischievous 10-year-old sneaking extra illicit slices of warm pumpkin pie when Mom's back was turned, the sweet, spicy taste a secret delight. I remembered being a gangly 15-year-old arguing playfully yet fiercely with my older brother Liam about who had the rightful claim to the last coveted drumstick, our sibling rivalry momentarily forgotten in the pursuit of poultry. Every single year, without fail, I was there. I was an integral, cherished part of it. Thanksgiving wasn't merely a holiday on the calendar. It was the unwavering anchor of our family, the one sacred day we all, without exception, put aside our petty differences, our simmering squabbles, our unspoken resentments, and came together, united, to celebrate gratitude, togetherness, and the unbreakable bonds of kinship. And now, with a single cold text message, I was explicitly, unequivocally uninvited. The sting was immediate. A deep, searing, almost physical pain that settled heavily in my chest, constricting my lungs. It wasn't just about the superficial act of missing a meal. It was about the profound, agonizing feeling of being excised, brutally cut out of the very fabric of my family's most cherished, most sacred tradition. Why? What egregious transgression, what unforgivable action, what careless word could possibly warrant such a brutal, public exclusion? My thoughts raced, a frantic, desperate scramble to pinpoint the exact moment, the specific action, the precise word that had led to this devastating, inexplicable outcome. Then a memory surfaced, sharp and unwelcome, like a jagged splinter under the skin of my consciousness. It was just 2 weeks ago at Aunt Carol's annual birthday dinner, a typically jovial affair. My cousin Mark had been boasting, his voice loud and self-congratulatory about his shiny new job, a prestigious position he'd secured through my uncle's extensive, influential connections, despite his well-known questionable ethics and dubious past. I'd listened, growing increasingly uncomfortable, a knot tightening in my stomach, until I simply couldn't hold my tongue any longer, my moral compass screaming for justice. "That's not right, Mark," I'd said, my voice perhaps a little too loud, a little too firm, cutting through the polite chatter. "You know that company has a long history of exploiting its workers, of engaging in unethical practices. How can you possibly be proud of being associated with that?" The entire table had gone silent, the sudden cessation of conversation deafening. My uncle had glared, his eyes narrowed in thinly veiled disapproval. Mark had flushed a deep, angry crimson, his pride wounded. And my mother, usually so quick to jump to my defense, to smooth over any social awkwardness, had simply stared at me, her expression utterly unreadable, a mask of stone. Later that evening, she'd pulled me aside, her voice low, tight, and laced with barely suppressed anger. "Elara, you utterly embarrassed us tonight. You simply do not air family laundry in public, especially not at a social gathering. Some things, my dear, are simply better left unsaid, regardless of your personal feelings. I'd tried desperately to explain, to articulate my profound moral objections, to convey the depth of my conviction, but she'd waved me off with a dismissive hand gesture, brushing aside my concerns as naive, youthful idealism. You think you know everything, don't you? You think your way, your rigid moral code, is the only correct way to live. The conversation had ended abruptly there, unresolved, a thick, suffocating tension left hanging palpably in the air between us. I hadn't thought much of it since, naively assuming it would simply blow over, a minor family squabble soon forgotten. Now, however, it felt like the meticulously placed fuse that had ignited this devastating, soul-crushing explosion. Was this truly it? Was my mother, my own mother, punishing me so severely for speaking my truth, for daring to challenge the established family narrative, for refusing to silently endorse something I believed, with every fiber of my being, was fundamentally wrong? The thought was a bitter, acrid pill to swallow, leaving a metallic taste in my mouth. My family, the very people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, to support me through thick and thin, were apparently willing to cast me out, to publicly shame me for a perceived transgression, for a single moment of unvarnished honesty. It felt like a profound, unforgivable betrayal, a deep, agonizing rejection that went far beyond the superficial act of a simple text message. It wasn't just, "Don't come to Thanksgiving." It was a much deeper, more insidious message. You are not welcome here. You are not truly one of us. Your voice, your deeply held values, your inconvenient truth are simply not tolerated within the confines of this family. The words echoed relentlessly in my head, each one a relentless, pounding hammer blow to my already bruised heart. I felt an overwhelming, profound sense of loneliness wash over me, a chilling, stark realization that the warmth, the security, the unwavering sense of belonging I had always associated with my family might have been nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion, a fragile, delicate facade that crumbled irrevocably at the very first sign of dissent, of independent thought. The tears came then, hot and stinging, blurring the vibrant, festive holiday lights of the city outside my apartment window, transforming them into shimmering, distorted streaks of color. I was adrift, completely unmoored, on the very cusp of a holiday that was universally supposed to be about profound gratitude, about shared joy. But for me, it had become a stark, agonizing reminder of my own unexpected, utterly agonizing solitude. The turkey, I knew, would be carved with precision, the blessings given with solemnity, the laughter shared with abandon, but I would be nowhere near it. I was irrevocably outside the sacred circle, looking in, a silent, heartbroken observer, and the raw, visceral pain of that sudden, brutal exclusion was almost unbearable, a weight pressing down on my very soul. The hours that followed the initial, devastating text were a chaotic, disorienting blur of disbelief, raw pain, and a gnawing sense of emptiness. I tried calling my mom, my fingers fumbling with the phone, my voice already thick with unshed tears, but it went straight to voicemail, a cold, impersonal recording that offered no comfort, no explanation. Then, in a desperate attempt to grasp at any remaining thread of connection, I called Liam, my older brother. He answered, his voice tight, strained, and filled with an uncomfortable reluctance that immediately set my teeth on edge. "Look, Alara," he began, his words clipped. "Mom's really upset. You shouldn't have said what you did about Mark. It's Thanksgiving, for crying out loud. Just let it go." He sounded profoundly uncomfortable, like he was mechanically reading from a pre-written script, every syllable carefully chosen to avoid direct confrontation. "She said she needs space. Just give it time." Space? On Thanksgiving? The very idea was utterly unfathomable, a cruel twist of the knife. I could faintly hear the sounds of holiday preparations in the background, the distant clatter of pots and pans, the muffled murmur of voices, a symphony of domesticity that highlighted my own painful isolation. My family was there, together, united, preparing for the feast, for the joyous celebration, and I was being told to give it time, to simply disappear. It felt like a cruel, elaborate joke, a sadistic prank designed to inflict maximum emotional damage. I tried, desperately, to explain my perspective, to articulate the unwavering moral stance that had compelled my words, but he cut me off abruptly, his voice firm. "It's not about that, Alara. It's about family. You don't rock the boat. Not on Thanksgiving. Not ever." His words were a chilling echo of my mother's, a stark, painful mirror reflecting the unspoken, rigid rules that governed our family's existence. Conformity, it seemed, was paramount, valued above conscience. Appearance was everything, prioritized over truth. I hung up the phone, a hollow, aching void expanding rapidly in my chest. Even Liam, my brother, my supposed confidant, my childhood playmate, was choosing to side with the family's rigid expectations, with the comfortable, convenient facade. It was a stark, painful realization. My family, the entity I had always believed to be my safe haven, wasn't a safe space for dissent, for independent thought, for inconvenient truths. It was a carefully constructed facade, a delicate house of cards, and I had dared to crack its fragile foundation. The vivid image of Sarah in two antiques, abandoned by her adoptive family, resonated deeply within my soul. While my situation wasn't as extreme, the raw, visceral feeling of being discarded, of realizing that the people you thought were your family could turn their backs on you so easily, so coldly, was a shared, agonizing experience. I felt like an outsider looking in, a complete stranger to the very people who had raised me, who had shaped my world. The warmth of past Thanksgivings, once a comforting, enveloping blanket, now felt like a cruel, mocking taunt, highlighting the cold, harsh reality of my present, isolated existence. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a disoriented haze, the vibrant, festive holiday atmosphere of the city outside my window, feeling alien, mocking, and utterly detached from my internal turmoil. Every happy family I saw strolling by, every cheerful greeting exchanged between strangers, every tantalizing whiff of roasted food wafting from nearby restaurants, twisted the knife deeper into my gut. I tried desperately to distract myself, to immerse myself in work, to lose myself in mundane tasks, but my focus was shattered, my concentration fragmented. The words "don't come to Thanksgiving" played on a relentless, agonizing loop in my mind, a constant, insidious reminder of my profound, painful exclusion. I thought about Emma in one text, disowned by her father for daring to speak her truth, for exposing his abusive behavior. Her grandmother, Eleanor, had secretly supported her, a beacon of unwavering, unconditional love in a sea of family disapproval. I longed, with an almost physical ache, for such a beacon, for someone, anyone in my family to understand, to stand by me, to offer a word of comfort. But there was only silence, a deafening, suffocating silence from those who should have been my strongest allies, my fiercest defenders. As evening approached, the loneliness became a physical, crushing weight, pressing down on my chest, making it difficult to breathe. I considered going to a friend's house, seeking solace in their company, but the thought of explaining my situation, of admitting that my own family had so coldly cast me out, felt too humiliating, too raw. I didn't want pity. I wanted my family. I wanted the familiar comfort of our cherished traditions, even the ones that sometimes felt stifling, restrictive. But that comfort, that sense of belonging, was now irrevocably denied to me. The irony was not lost on me, a holiday universally dedicated to gratitude, to togetherness, and I felt nothing but a profound sense of loss, betrayal, and agonizing isolation. I remembered the story of Emma in 3 and TXT, falsely accused and publicly ostracized by her best friend on her wedding day. The feeling of being profoundly misunderstood, of having your character questioned, your integrity doubted by those you love and trust, was a pain I now intimately understood, a shared agony that transcended individual circumstances. It wasn't just the superficial absence from the dinner table. It was the insidious implication that I was somehow unworthy, that my very presence would taint the sacred, pristine family gathering, sully their perfect image. Thanksgiving Day finally arrived. A crisp, clear autumn morning, deceptively beautiful. The air outside was filled with the distant, muffled sounds of celebration, the joyous laughter of children, the faint strains of festive music, the occasional celebratory burst of fireworks echoing in the distance. I stayed confined within the small, silent sanctuary of my apartment, the oppressive quiet amplifying my profound solitude. I tried, half-heartedly, to cook something for myself, a small, pathetic attempt to reclaim a semblance of normalcy, a sliver of holiday cheer, but the food tasted like ash, like dust in my mouth. Every bite was a bitter, painful reminder of the feast I was missing, the lively conversations I wasn't part of, the cherished memories being made without me, forever etched into the family's collective history, excluding my presence. I scrolled aimlessly through social media, a masochistic act of self-torture, seeing an endless stream of smiling faces, perfectly curated family photos, tables overflowing with an abundance of food. My own family's posts were conspicuously absent, a glaring void, a silent, damning testament to their deliberate decision to erase me from their holiday narrative, to pretend I simply didn't exist. It was a deliberate act of erasure, a public, humiliating declaration of my unworthiness, my expendability. The day stretched on, an eternity of quiet, agonizing reflection. I thought about my grandmother, who had passed away a few years ago, her absence a constant ache. She had always been the family peacemaker, the one who saw beyond superficial appearances, who valued honesty, integrity, and genuine connection above all else. I vividly imagined her reaction to this cruel, petty exclusion, her gentle but firm disapproval of my mother's harsh, unyielding actions. Family means standing by each other, Ilara. I could almost hear her soft, wise voice say, her tone resolute, unwavering, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Her physical absence felt like another layer of grief, a missing, irreplaceable piece in the complex puzzle of my fractured family. I realized then that my family wasn't just rejecting me, they were, in a deeper sense, rejecting a fundamental part of themselves, a part that valued truth, authenticity, and integrity. And in that moment of profound, crushing loneliness, a tiny, defiant flicker of resolve ignited within me. I wouldn't let their cruel rejection define me. I wouldn't let their deafening silence break me. If they couldn't see my inherent worth, if they couldn't accept my inconvenient truth, then perhaps, just perhaps, it was their profound loss, not mine. The pain was still there, a dull, persistent throb, a constant reminder of the wound. But beneath it, a new, nascent resolve began to form, solidifying with each passing moment. I would find my own way to heal, my own way to celebrate gratitude, my own path to belonging, even if it meant forging a completely new existence, far from the familiar, yet now unwelcoming embrace of my past. The days following Thanksgiving were a strange, unsettling mix of lingering, raw hurt and a burgeoning, fierce resolve. The silence from my family was not merely deafening. It was a palpable, suffocating presence, a deliberate void. No calls, no texts, no apologies, not even a perfunctory check-in. It was as if I had simply ceased to exist, vanished entirely from their collective consciousness, a ghost haunting the periphery of their perfect, curated lives. The pain of that deliberate erasure was profound, a deep, aching wound. But paradoxically, it also solidified something fundamental within me. If they were willing to discard me so easily, so coldly, then perhaps the idealized family I had always cherished and believed in wasn't the family I truly needed, or perhaps ever truly had. I thought deeply about Sarah and Tuin, Text, who, after being abandoned by her adoptive family, found a profound, unconditional love and belonging in her chosen family, Maria and her children. Her story became a quiet, yet powerful inspiration, a living testament to the profound idea that love, acceptance, and belonging are not solely defined by the arbitrary bonds of blood. It was a difficult, bitter truth to accept, a pill I had to swallow slowly, but ultimately, it was a necessary one for my own emotional survival and growth. My family, I realized, had consciously chosen their comfort, their carefully maintained facade, over my truth, their fragile reputation over my unwavering integrity. And I, in turn, had to choose my own peace, my own authenticity, my own path to healing. I made a conscious, deliberate decision to stop chasing their elusive acceptance, to cease my futile attempts to win back their approval. Instead, I redirected my energy, pouring it into rebuilding my own sense of self, a self that was strong, independent, and completely separate from their stifling expectations and conditional love. I immersed myself in my work, finding unexpected solace and a deep sense of purpose in the tangible results of my efforts, in the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. I actively reconnected with old friends, individuals who had always valued my honesty, who celebrated my individuality, and who offered genuine, unconditional support. I started volunteering regularly at a local animal shelter, finding a profound, uncomplicated, and truly unconditional love and acceptance in the wagging tails of eager dogs and the soft, comforting purrs of grateful cats. These small, deliberate acts of self-care, of reaching out and connecting with the world on my own terms, slowly, painstakingly, began to mend the gaping, festering wound in my heart. Each passing day, the sharp, agonizing ache lessened, gradually replaced by a quiet, resilient strength, a newfound sense of inner peace. I was learning day by day to stand firmly on my own 2 feet, to define my own inherent worth, completely independent of my family's fleeting approval or their harsh, unwarranted judgment. One crisp autumn afternoon, a few weeks after that fateful Thanksgiving, I received an unexpected, startling phone call. It was Aunt Carol, my mother's younger sister, the very person whose birthday dinner had inadvertently sparked the entire painful ordeal. Her voice was hesitant, laced with a familiar sadness and a hint of trepidation. "Ilara," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I heard what happened. I'm so incredibly sorry. Your mother, she can be very rigid, very set in her ways, especially when it comes to appearances. My heart fluttered with a fragile, almost forgotten hope, a tiny spark in the darkness. She told everyone you were being difficult, that you were deliberately trying to cause trouble, to disrupt the family harmony. Aunt Carol paused, a moment of silence stretching between us, then continued, her voice gaining a quiet, unwavering strength, a newfound conviction. But I know you, Alara. You've always been honest, sometimes brutally so, sometimes inconveniently so, but always, always from a place of deep conviction, from a place of integrity. And what you said about Mark's job, it needed to be said. Someone finally had to say it, to speak that uncomfortable truth. Tears welled in my eyes, not of sadness or self-pity, but of profound, overwhelming relief, of unexpected validation. Someone finally saw me. Someone finally understood. It was a small, almost imperceptible crack in the impenetrable wall of silence that had surrounded me, but it meant absolutely everything. Aunt Carol didn't offer a grand, dramatic reconciliation, nor did she condemn my mother's actions with harsh words. She simply offered validation, a quiet, powerful acknowledgement of my truth, of my moral stance. Your grandmother would have been so incredibly proud of you, she said softly, her voice thick with emotion, a nostalgic tremor. She always said you had her spirit, her unwavering sense of justice. That single sentence, more than any apology, more than any grand gesture, healed a deep, festering part of me. It was a tangible connection to the past, a comforting whisper of my grandmother's unwavering love, a powerful reminder that I wasn't entirely alone, that my values were not misplaced. It was the kind of secret, vital support Emma in 1DTX received from her grandmother, a precious lifeline in a turbulent sea of family disapproval and rejection. The conversation with Aunt Carol, while deeply meaningful, didn't magically fix everything, didn't erase the past, but it gave me the crucial courage, the emotional fortitude, to fundamentally redefine what family truly meant to me. It wasn't just about blood or shared DNA, it was about shared values, mutual respect, unwavering support, and unconditional acceptance. It was about who showed up for you, not just physically at gatherings, but emotionally, consistently, in moments of vulnerability and need. I realized with startling clarity that while my immediate family had chosen to exclude me, to cast me out, I had a wider, more expansive circle of people who truly saw me, who genuinely appreciated me for who I was, flaws and all. My loyal friends, my supportive colleagues, the compassionate people at the animal shelter, and now my brave Aunt Carol. They were my chosen family, the ones who truly understood the profound meaning of belonging, of genuine connection. As Christmas approached, a season typically fraught with familial expectations and obligations, I felt for the very first time a profound sense of peace, a quiet calm settling over me. There was no agonizing decision to be made about whether to attend a family gathering I wasn't invited to, no internal struggle to navigate. Instead, I planned a quiet, intimate dinner with a few close friends, a friendsgiving of sorts, a celebration of our chosen bonds, where we would gather to celebrate our deep connections, our shared laughter, and our unwavering mutual support. It wasn't the grand, elaborate, traditional affair I was used to, the one steeped in decades of ritual, but it was filled with a genuine warmth, an authentic acceptance that transcended any superficial formality. There was no pretense, no unspoken rules, no hidden agendas, just pure, unadulterated, authentic connection. It was a different kind of family, one I had consciously chosen, and one that had, in turn, chosen me back with open arms and open hearts. The night before Christmas Eve, my phone buzzed again, a familiar vibration. It was my mother. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then, taking a deep breath, I answered. Her voice was strained, tentative, laced with an unfamiliar vulnerability. Alara, are you coming home for Christmas? The question hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken regret, with a hint of longing. I could faintly hear the familiar sounds of carols playing softly in the background, the comforting hum of our family home, a sound that once brought me so much joy, now a distant echo. No, Mom, I said, my voice calm, steady, and devoid of the raw hurt that had once consumed me. I'm not. There was a long, pregnant silence on the other end of the line, a moment stretching into an eternity. I have other plans. I'm celebrating with people who value my presence, who truly want me there. It wasn't a harsh rebuke, not a bitter accusation, just a simple, undeniable statement of fact. A quiet, firm assertion of my newfound independence, my hard-won autonomy. Oh, she finally said, her voice small, almost imperceptible, tinged with a hint of resignation. I understand. And for the very first time, I truly believed she did. Not that she necessarily agreed with my choices, perhaps, but that she understood the profound, undeniable consequence of her actions, of her decision to exclude me. I didn't need her permission anymore, didn't crave her invitation, didn't seek her approval. I had found my own way, built my own circle, forged my own path. The conversation was brief, ending with a polite but firm goodbye. I didn't feel a surge of triumph, no vindictive satisfaction, just a quiet, profound sense of closure, a peaceful resolution. The pain was still a part of my story, a deep, indelible scar that served as a constant reminder of what I had endured, of the lessons I had learned, but it no longer defined me, no longer held me captive. I looked out my window at the twinkling, festive lights of the city, a gentle, silent snow beginning to fall, blanketing the world in a pristine white. My journey had been undeniably painful, marked by rejection, by profound loneliness, and by moments of deep despair. But it had also, unexpectedly, led me to a profound understanding of myself, of my own resilience, and of the true, authentic meaning of connection. I had learned through bitter experience that family isn't always about blood or rigid tradition, or even about forced forgiveness. Sometimes it's about courageously standing in your truth, speaking your mind, even when it cost you everything you thought you had. And sometimes, when you lose what you thought was your whole world, when your foundations crumble, you discover a new, more authentic one. A world filled with people who truly see you, who genuinely value you, and who truly love you for exactly who you are, without conditions or caveats. The text message that had, in an instant, shattered my world had in fact set me free. It had forced me to embark on a journey of self-discovery, to build a life where I was not just invited out of obligation, but truly wanted, truly seen, and truly loved. And that, I realized, was the greatest Thanksgiving gift of all, a profound blessing disguised as a painful rejection.